Do your push-ups look a bit like this? Or maybe like this? Or maybe you can do a few push-ups but then just face plant to the ground? Do you envy those people that just make push-ups look so easy? Well, in today's video, I'm going to show you how you can do at least 10 push-ups in one go within the next 30 days. Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. My name's Paul and it's my mission through the power of YouTube to help as many people as possible to improve their health, their fitness, their well-being, and ultimately to help them enjoy their lives at a higher level. I do want to say quickly before we start to make sure you keep watching the video all the way to the end because I do have a little bonus in store for you today. So as you may know, push-ups are a fantastic way to help build more upper body strength, to build muscle tone, to improve sports performance, and also a really good way to actually build more muscle mass too, if you do them correctly. So in this video, I'm going to show you exactly what you're doing wrong, how to correctly set up your position so you know you're activating the right muscles and eliminating those energy leaks, and really get the most out of each push-up. So let's do this. Section 1, push-up mistakes. So it's pretty easy to assume that in order to do really good push-ups, all you need is a reasonable amount of upper body strength in your chest and your triceps. But this is actually a little bit simplistic. So as you can see from this EMG study, there are far more muscles working than just your chest and your triceps. In fact, we work our core, our glutes, and our legs quite significantly too. So we need to make sure that we're activating the right muscles that will help us perform this technique better. So it should be said that these other muscles are mainly working as stabilizer muscles. So they're working isometrically without necessarily lengthening or shortening to stabilize the body while we perform the push-up. The good news is that with correct setup, you'll actually be activating these muscles a lot more and ultimately make your push-up progress much faster. So let's start with your setup then. And firstly, the hand position. It's really common for people to have too wide a stance at first, or even too narrow a stance when they're first starting. And we can definitely use these as technique progressions later on, but for now, let's start with the hands about shoulder width. Lying on the floor, if you set up your hands so they're in that shoulder width or just outside shoulder width position. Now you want to adjust the position of your hands or your body to ensure that your elbows are directly over your wrists and your forearms are in as close to a vertical position as possible. Once your hands are in the right position, we also want to spread out those fingers so we've got a nice wide contact point with the floor. And you also want to think about screwing your hands out to try to create this slight rotational force. And this will help bring your elbows into the right position. If you were looking at your body from above, like in this picture here, you should see about a 45 to 60 degree angle between your torso and your elbows. As you can see, it looks kind of like an arrow. So now we have the hands in the correct position, we're going to move on to the legs and the hips. So without moving your hands, you're now going to straighten your legs and try and find a position where you have a straight line between your ankles, knees, hips, shoulders, and head. Next, you're going to squeeze your butt and tuck your pelvis under slightly to help create more tension in your abs and your glutes. And you're also going to think about squeezing your legs, really contracting those leg muscles too. We're then going to think about pushing away from the floor to slightly protract the shoulders and activate the serratus muscles. And we're also then just going to adjust the head to bring that back in line with the rest of the body. Now we're ready to start our first push-up. As we've already found out, what we want to try to do is activate as many muscles as possible. So when you initiate the push-up, I actually want you to think about pulling yourself down towards the floor, or even pulling the floor towards you. This is going to allow us to have much more control on the way down into each push-up. You can inhale slowly as you come down, but don't forget to keep that tension throughout your core, your glutes, and your legs. Go down as low as you can, and as you start to then push back up, you're going to hold the breath briefly while you get through that sticking point, through the hardest part of the lift. This is the time that you really want to make sure that those elbows are still in that set position, about 45 to 60 degrees, and the hands really engaged with the floor. The most common mistakes that I see at this point is when people actually start to allow the hips to sag. So again, this is caused by insufficient tension through the hips, the core, the legs. It's also really common to see people going way too quickly, almost kind of dropping down into the push-up. That's just going to sacrifice control and make it way harder to come back up. So once you return back to that start position, take a second, have a brief pause, make sure everything's still set before you commence the next rep. Now ideally, just using this technique, you'll be able to build up your repetitions relatively quickly. If you are still struggling though, there are definitely a few modifications we can make to make this a little bit easier and to progress you a little bit faster. So the simplest way to make the push-ups easier is actually to use a slightly elevated position for your hands. Generally speaking, the higher the hands are relative to the feet, the easier the push-up is going to be. So what you can do is simply use a box or a bench to make this exercise easier. Or if you have access to one, you can use a squat rack as shown here, or a Smith machine in the gym. So using this method is actually really great because as you can see, there are multiple different hooks here where you can position the bar. So this gives you much more control in making the exercise easier or harder as you progress. It should be said that even when you're using these techniques where your hands are higher, everything else that has gone before that we've already said about correct technique still applies. You really still have to use that same technique, hand position, tension through the body, and so on. And what I would suggest when you're using these techniques is once you get to the stage where you can do around about 8 to 10 push-ups at your given height, then move on to a lower height. Alright, so in order to really accelerate your push-up progress, there are also some really amazing accessory exercises we can do and add those into our push-up program. So these include exercises like band pulls, .45-degree band pulls, band rows, banded face pulls, and scapular push-ups for shoulder strength and stability, tricep dips, and dumbbell floor presses for chest and tricep strength, hollow holds, and body saws for core strength. Now don't worry, I'm going to put all these exercises into a program that you can download later, so make sure you keep watching all the way to the end and I'll show you how you can download that. I'll also pop that up on the screen so you can take a screenshot of it if it's easier. Okay, so once you've got to the point where you can do about 10 to 12 good push-ups from the floor, then it might be time to start advancing your push-ups. Now how you do this will depend somewhat on the goals that you've set for yourself. So for example, if you want to continue to build strength or build muscle, then you might want to use a slightly more resisted variation. However, if you do want to continue to build more strength endurance, then you can definitely continue doing those push-ups up to 15, 20 reps or more. But no matter what your goal is, the first port of call generally to make your push-ups that little bit harder, a bit more challenging, is simply to increase the tempo or the time under tension for each rep. So instead of taking 2 seconds to lower yourself down, you might take 4 or 5 seconds to lower yourself down in each rep. Now the general rule of thumb here is if you're working for more strength endurance, then higher repetitions, fewer sets, and less rest in between sets is the way forward. If muscle size is what you're looking for, then you want to try and stick to a repetition range of around about 8 to 10 repetitions. You want to perform around about 3 to 5 sets with about a 60-second rest period in between each one. For more maximal strength, then we can add more resistance again, do fewer repetitions, more sets with a slightly longer rest period in between. So with that said, we might want to find an option which really allows us to load the push-up even more. And for this, I really like band resisted push-ups. So using this technique, it's a really inexpensive but very effective way to increase the resistance and therefore to elicit more strength and muscle gains. Your push-up program. So what I'd like you to do next, guys, is to download the push-up program template, the PDF, or you can just use the template from the screenshots. And I want you to enter today's date, and I want you to test yourself how many push-ups you can do right now. And that number goes in day 1, your starting point. Next, at the end of your 30-day goal, I want you to give yourself a target, a goal to set for how many push-ups you'd like to be able to do after the 30 days. Then I want you to go back and then plug in the days that you're going to do your push-up routine. After that, I want you to go down to the comments below and let me know what your current starting point is and what your target is. After that, it's all just about getting started and sticking to the routine. So why not start right now? I guarantee if you stick to the routine, you'll be really surprised at how quickly you develop and how quickly those push-ups improve. And lastly, before I leave, I'd really appreciate it if you could like this video, and if you would consider subscribing, that'd be awesome too. It costs nothing, but it really does help me to grow my channel and to reach as many people as possible. And also, if you've got a friend who might like to join you on your push-up challenge, just hit that little share arrow below and send them the video. That's all from me right now, but I can't wait to read your comments and see your progress. So stay well, stay healthy, and I'll see you in the next one.